Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. So looks like our devotees are gathering now. Let's give them a few more seconds to gather. Okay. So thank you very much, dear devotees, and welcome to the ISKCON of New Jersey, Tobacco Zoom channel. And tonight it gives us great pleasure, and it is a distinct honor to welcome His Grace Chaturatma Prabhu, our very dear friend, and a very, very wonderful devotee, all around entertainer, if you will, and just an exemplary Vaishnava in every way. So just a brief background of Chaturatma Prabhu. He joined ISKCON very early on in 1973 in St. Louis and received Brahminical initiation from Srila Prabhupada in 1974. And by the end of that year, he was engaged as full-time pujari for Shri Shri Gaura Nataraj. And over the years, he served as a head pujari in Dallas, Houston, Chicago, and two of the Radha Damodar traveling bus parties. He has been involved in the deity worship program of Radha Govinda in 3 locations, the 55th Street Temple, the 7th Avenue, and the Brooklyn Temple. And currently he is serving on the deity management board for Radha Shyam Sundar in Alachua, Florida. He's also an advisor for the deity worship conference. So deity worship is very strong and runs in his spiritual veins. Chaturatma Prabhu is also very widely known for his yagyas, pujas, weddings, samskaras. I mean, no deity installation in America or abroad is complete without Chaturatma Prabhu's playing some role in it, and initiations are the big initiations that take place. Chaturatma Prabhu somehow pops up. My own wife, when she was initiated, Mansi Ganga Devidasi, Chaturatma Prabhu was the Yagya Purohit for Syamananda Swami and for Indradhyumna Swami and so on. So he has played a vital role in our lives personally, and we very much appreciate it. He travels quite a bit with his very dear friends Indradhyumna Swami and Bharahari Prabhu, and assists in their preaching in Poland, Russia, Ukraine, India. He lives in Alachua, Florida, but he doesn't come out of Govardhan somehow. He manages both. He lives with his wife Pashupati Mataji, and they have 3 grown children as well as 3 granddaughters. And of course, he's very beloved. He's very beloved all over the movement, and even the smallest child and the most elderly devotee knows him. So it is again my honor and pleasure to welcome him to our Tuaku Daily Sangha. And today he'll be speaking about a great teacher in our line, Syamananda Pandit Prabhu, Syamananda Prabhu. So please enlighten us, Chaturatna Prabhu, and welcome. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. I don't know how the initiating gurus sit through their Vyas pujas with so many nice things said about them. It's very embarrassing. But thank you very much for inviting me. It's my pleasure to have this opportunity to serve the devotees. Particularly speaking about Vaishnavacharya is something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that I've spent some number of years researching and very enthusiastic to speak about. So with that, I guess we'll just dive right in from here at Shri Govardhan.
Chaturatna Prabhu, I think we seem to be having a little bit of a choppiness. We can hear individual words, but your sentences are somehow breaking up. Do you have sort of background noise, maybe a fan or something might be causing that? I'm just wondering.
I do happen to have a fan on. You're pretty perceptive. Let me get up and turn that off.
Fan, but those tend to make the words choppy. Right now you have a whole room full of your fans, so maybe, you don't need that one fan.
I always bring my own fan with me. Oh, goodness me. Is that better?
Yes, I think it's a little bit better, yes.
Okay, maybe I need to work on getting a mic for future programs. Okay, so we're good?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Sorry for that little bit of tech difficulty. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militamina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pandum Lam Jayati Girim Yakripa Tamaham Vande Sri Gurum Dinitarinam Vanchakapaturibhischa Kripa Sindhu Bahevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'm very eager to speak tonight about Syamananda Pandit, one of the three great heroes of our Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Interestingly enough, Syamananda Pandit was not the name he was born with. He was born in Utkala, village there in Orissa, Dharendra Bahadurpur. Difficult name to remember, not so important, but the fact that he was an Orissan Vaishnava. His father's name was Sri Krishna Mandala, and his mother's name was Durika. Now, Krishna Mandala and Durika had children prior to his birth, but all of them died in infancy or at childbirth. And so they were very unhappy in this task of raising children. So finally, one son survived, and they named this son Durika. I'm sorry. They named him Duki. Duki is a word that indicates unhappiness and sorrow. So their thought was, if we name this child this, then the god of death will not come, because he won't want to bring any more unhappiness or sorrow to us. So this was the circumstances surrounding Duki's birth into this wonderful Vaishnava family. Now, everyone in the village, when he was born, they spoke about what a highly spiritual child he was. The moment of his birth, he received the full mercy of Lord Jagannath, it was said. And they described his features as being just like Cupid, had beautiful lotus-like eyes and long arms, all of the different qualities that are described in the appreciation of the presence of a great saintly person taking their birth like this. So after some time in his childhood, there were the different purification rites, grain ceremony, the hair cutting ceremony, learning the alphabet, all of these things. And he then began his education, and everything very easily adapted to him. Within a very short period of time, all the basic understanding grammar and poetry and rhetoric and philosophy. He grasped all these things very quickly and very easily. He had a very strong attraction to Sri Sri Gornitai. And because there were many, many Vaishnavas in the village. And so hearing about the pastimes of Gornitai, he developed an attraction to them. Now, his mother and father were good Vaishnavas. His father was respected as an advanced devotee himself. And so seeing that his son was attracted and developing a taste for the message, the pastimes, and the chanting of Gornitai, he decided that it was time for him to consider initiation. So he began to speak with his son like this. And it's interesting because the conviction that Duki answered him with, he said, my guru is living in Ambika Kona. He is the disciple of Sri Gauridas Pandit, and his name is Sri Doi Chaitanya. If you will give me your permission, Father, I will go there and I will accept initiation from him and serve him.
Prabhu, sorry, Prabhu, there's still a bit of choppiness. We can hear some of your words, but so is it possible for you to turn off the Govardhan background? I know we like it very much. That may help. It's one of our,
okay.
Yeah, it could possibly help. I'm just the background. Yeah.
Maybe impacting the bandwidth, huh?
Possibly, or the CPU.
Let's
Okay.
see.
Let's see if that helps. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, this might work. Let's try it. Yeah.
All right. Back to mundane old Chaturapna and Alachua. So in this way, he proposed to his father that you let me go. Now, we all know the distance from Orissa to Bengal is not, a quick hop, skip, and a jump. It was some bit of a travel. So his father said to him, said, how is it possible that you're going to do this? So he said, so many pilgrims are going from Orissa to Bengal and Bengal to Orissa, and they're going to take bath in the Ganges. So I'll simply tag along with a group of pilgrims and go with them. So in this way, his father considered it, thought about it. He and his mother discussed it, and they decided, yes, this is a good idea. So he set out for Gaudadesh in the company of different pilgrims, and he went through the different places. He arrived in Navadweep, and he went to Shantipur, and then finally he came to Ambika Kona. And he inquired from different people he met, where's the house of Gauridas Pandit? Now, if you've had the good fortune to be there, it's a very, very famous place in Ambika Kona. Ambika Kona is the residence of many, many wonderful devotees. We'll focus just on these for today. So as he found this place, he went to the ashram and he offered his obeisances at the gate. Just by coincidence, Sri Chaitanya was walking by at this time and saw this young boy offering his obeisances there. So he asked him, he said, who are you? What is your name? He said, I have come to serve your lotus feet. I am born in a family of Gopas. My father's name is Sri Krishna Mandala, and my name is Duki. Sri Chaitanya mentions was so happy by the sweet way that this boy spoke. And he said, yes, you come, but why Duki? Duki is sadness. From now on, you should be known as Duki Krishna, one who is sad only when separated from Krishna. So he gave him this name. So Duki Krishna, as he's now known, he began his service with great devotion and, very, very attentive to whatever instructions he was given. And therefore, on the proper auspicious day, he was given initiation into the sacred mantra by Hrido Chaitanya. Now, it didn't take Hrido Chaitanya long to see what a very intelligent and what an actually very advanced individual this disciple was. So he decided that he would send him to Vrindavan and have him study under Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami, of course, was the respected head of the Gaudiya Sampradaya and known as the topmost scholar. So he arranged for him to go and have tutelage under Jiva Goswami. With the blessings from his spiritual master, Duki Krishna bowed his head, Hridoy Chaitanya sent certain messages and certain instructions to be given and respects to be given to Jiva Goswami when Dukhi Krishna got there, and Dukhi Krishna went on his way. Here again, we see that the journey to Vrindavan is not just a very quick one, not like a short time like we can take nowadays. It's a very long journey, and he had to pass many holy places. He went to Navadvip, and when he went to Navadvip, he asked, "Where's the house of Jagannath Mishra?" Because he wanted to go and pay his obeisances and take darshan there. And he got there, and he was met by Ishan. And we could actually do one entire class on Ishan Prabhu and his contact and his service to Jagannath Mishra and Sachimata and Mahaprabhu. But let's suffice it to say he was one of the remaining senior Vaishnavas at that time. And he was very, very happy to receive Dukhi Krishna. And he showed him the different places of Mahaprabhu's pastimes there. And he only stayed for one day. How he could tear himself away after only one day, I guess it was the instruction from his spiritual master to go straight to Vrindavan. So he did like this. And then from there, he set out the Mathura, continued. He went through Gaya. And as he went there, he remembered the place of Mahaprabhu's pastime of accepting initiation there and continued on there. After some time, he came to Kashi, and there he met Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar. These are two very famous devotees that had been personally sent by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to do preaching there in Kashi. And they spent many hours together that day discussing all the different pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He continued on his travels, continued, and finally, with great happiness, he arrived in Mathura. And what's the first thing anybody does when they go to Mathura? They go to the Adikeshava temple. They take darshan there, take bath in the Jamuna. Then he rolled in the dust at the birthplace of Sri Krishna. After taking a little bit of prasadam, taking a little bit of rest, then he continued on to Vrindavan itself. When he arrived in Vrindavan, he asked where the ashram of Jiva Goswami could be found. And locating this ashram, he went and he found Jiva Goswami, offered his obeisances in the lotus feet of Jiva Goswami with great happiness, great satisfaction, a real sense of fulfillment of having made his journey and completed it. I mean, I don't think we can even perceive of what it would be like to come in front of Jiva Goswami and actually see him in person and offer obeisances to him. What to speak of, had the great fortune to study under him. So he spoke to Jiva Goswami. He said, "My Guru Dev, Hridoy Chaitanya, has committed me to your charge. It is his petition to your grace that he is entrusting me to you into your care, and for you to please instruct me in the literatures of the Goswamis, and then after some time, send me back to him." So Jiva Goswami, of course, was very, very happy to receive Dukhi Krishna. And it mentions how Dukhi Krishna was very attentive in serving Jiva Goswami. And they began to study the different scriptures. And at this time, he met the two other classmates of Jiva Goswami, the two other students of Jiva Goswami who became his classmates. And that was, of course, Srinivasacharya and Narottam Das Thakur. Now, this is a good point at which to examine a little bit the context of age in these different personalities. Srinivasacharya was born just about 10 years prior to the departure of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Narottam Das Thakur was born 1 year before the departure of Mahaprabhu. And Syamananda, Dukhi Krishna, he's not Syamananda yet. Dukhi was born 1 year after. So Narottam and Dukhi are just a year or two apart. But Srinivas is the senior of the three. He's 10 years older than them. So the three of them, regardless of their age difference, they immediately bonded together. It was said that they were like three souls in one body in their studies together and their performance of services and in their execution of their devotional practices. Everything they did together, taking prashadam together. We've all had friendships like this in Krishna consciousness. Particularly, it was a little easier when we were brahmacharis, maybe some group of devotees that we just constantly did everything with. So this was the type of relationship between these three. Now, after some time, Dukhi Krishna made a request of Jiva Goswami. He said that he would like for him to please give him some particular type of service that would assist him in developing prema bhakti. I can't imagine any of us in our time with Srila Prabhupada having said to Srila Prabhupada, could you please give me some service that will help me develop my prema bhakti? I mean, not only were we too neophyte to even have a clue what prema bhakti meant, but none of us had any inclinations in this regards. But Dukhi Krishna was a very special personality, a very advanced individual. And Jiva Goswami could perceive this. So he gave him a service. He instructed him to go to the forest at Sevakunj and every day to sweep that forest area, the paths there. Take a broom with him and sweep the path. Now, this is not a service that Dukhi Krishna took lightheartedly. He took it in a very meditative and a very serious and a very thoughtful manner. And he would go and regularly execute this service. What we might refer to as the mere task of floor sweeping is seen in his mind as a service to the divine couple, because Sevakunj is where their different pastimes would take place. I remember the descriptions of his mood and thinking how to be able to be in touch with that dust every day. Such a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. Actually, I remember going around Govardhan one time, and there was a pilgrim there, had a large broom, and he was sweeping the path, particularly there in Anayor. They sweep that path every day. Not even so much to sweep whatever debris some thoughtless pilgrims may toss there, but just keeping it nice and fresh. And I saw that he was sweeping. I was going through there, and I put my head down and begged for him to put that broom on my head, which he very happily did and smiled. So, the act of sweeping these holy places, even though it just may be dirt that we're sweeping from one side to the other to make it look like nicer dirt, that's simply the mundane vision of it. Dukhi Krishna could understand the high spiritual nature of sweeping. So he took this up in a very wonderful mood. Now, one day, while Dukhi was cleaning the kunja, he was feeling some particular emotions of love within his heart, and he wasn't sure what was prompting them. And there he saw, just over there a little bit, was a bangle, an effulgent bangle, extremely effulgent. He'd never seen anything like this before, and he walked over and picked it up. He touched it to his forehead. It must be something very special. So he thought, this isn't ordinary. I'll hold on to this. And he put it into his cloth and tied it up in a little knot. I'll keep this until the person comes along that it belongs to. So he was thinking in this way. Now, in another dimension and realm, far, far beyond our material existence here, Radharani and her gopi friends were preparing for the morning services. And suddenly, Radharani noted that she was missing an ankle bracelet, a foot bracelet. And she mentioned this to Vishaka, and they began to discuss it. And Radharani became very embarrassed. How am I going to go before my elders? They'll notice this is missing and ask me about it. And this will be a very difficult situation. So she sent Vishaka, you please go back. I must have dropped this last night in Sevakunj. Please go back and find it. So through some amazing arrangement of the divine energy, Vishaka showed up at Sevakunj. And there was Dukhi Krishna very happily sweeping. And so she inquired from him. She said, "Oh, kind Gopa, did you happen to find a lost ankle bracelet around here anywhere?" Duki Krishna looked up, and upon seeing Vishaka, he was completely enamored. The sweet words, her radiant form, the pure spiritual energy emanating was beyond anything he had ever seen before, of course. And he was so dumbfounded he couldn't respond. And he just kind of stood there like that, as if the camera froze. So Shaka said again, "Excuse me, my dear Gopa, have you found the bracelet? Did you hear me?" He said, "Oh, yes, yes, I found it. I found it. Who are you?" She said, "Oh, I'm a cowherd girl." And he asked, "Well, where do you stay?" "Oh, I stay in a village just near here." And then, "This is your ankle bracelet?" She said, "No, no, no. It belongs to a new bride in our house, and she lost it here." "Well, why was she here?" "She had come to pick flowers for the ceremony, and it fell off. She didn't notice it until she returned home, so she sent me to come and get it." "All right, well, you please tell your friend that she can come and collect it from me." Vishaka said, "Oh, no, 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 that would be too much trouble for her. I'll just take it to her." Duki Krishna knew something very special was exchanging here. And he said, "No, no, I want to give it to her personally. You please ask her to come here and get it." So Vishaka returned to the side of Srimati Radhika, and she informed her of the situation and how this, little bit of an awkward scenario. What are they going to do? So it was decided that Srimati Radharani would go. So she returned with Vishaka. And Vishaka stood in the shade of one very large tree. And she was there just a little distant. And so she called out to Duki Krishna. She said, "Oh, Bhakta, that person who has lost her ankle bracelet is now here to receive it. Please bring it to her." Now, Duki Krishna, you can imagine upon seeing Vishaka how transformed he was. So here he is seeing Srimati Radharani. This is something that is way beyond our realm of understanding. We can only read these things in the Shastras and appreciate them in that mood. So the unparalleled, unmatched divine brilliance and beauty of Srimati Radharani. So in great joy, he handed the bangle to Vishaka, who returned it to Radharani. Now, this is, of course, a very important point. He did not approach Radharani directly. He did not give it to her as if he had some ability or some access or some right to give it to her first. It was done through one of the gopis. This is, of course, the mood that Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have taught us that our devotional service develops. We should never think that we can approach Srimati Radharani directly. Gopi Partur Padakamalaya Dasa 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 Dasa. We're the servant of the servant of the servant of the gopis. So he had this proper mood. So in this way, he went before there, and Duki Krishna could understand something very special was about to take place. And he offered his obeisances. He fell down on the ground, rolling in the dust there. And Vishaka then said to him, "Oh, best of the devotees, our Shaki wants to express her gratitude to you." Now, at this point, by the divine arrangement of Srimati Radharani, Radhakund manifested right there. This isn't the place of Radhakund, but what is the limitations of the supreme goddess Srimati Radharani? Radhakund manifested right there, and he stood before Vishaka, and she said, "Please immerse yourself into these waters." So he offered his obeisances, entered into the waters, and when he came out in a beautiful, transcendental female form of a gopi. So Vishaka then took this forest gopi, this new forest gopi, by the hand, brought her before Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani then took her ankle bracelet and touched it to the kumkum on her feet and placed it on his forehead, marking him with the type of tilak. As he was touched in this way, he felt great ecstasy. And then Srimati Radharani declared, this tilak will remain on your forehead. And from this day forward, you will be known as Syamananda. Now you can go. And he offered his obeisances. And then suddenly, Srimati Radharani, Vishaka, Radhakund, everything was gone. And he was by himself back in his male form there in Sevakunja with his broom in his hand, stunned by everything that had just taken place. So he began to reflect, what have I seen? What has just happened? What's transpired? He began to roll on the dust there, and ecstasy just began to pour out of his eyes. And he recited hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of prayers in glorification of Srimati Radharani. Now, he immediately wanted to go to Jiva Goswami. So he was very careful covering his head. He didn't want anybody to see this tilak that he had. He made his way to Jiva Goswami's ashram. And he sat down before Jiva Goswami and explained the entire situation, what had taken place, from finding the bangle all the way through to the end. And then when Jiva Goswami saw this brilliant tilak marking on his forehead, he offered his own obeisances to Srimati Radharani. Now, Jiva Goswami was very happy to hear about this, and he understood through the purity of Dukhi Krishna, now Syamananda, that this was a true and factual statement he was presenting. But he cautioned him. Don't say anything to anyone. Don't repeat this story to anyone. Just carry on with the name Syamananda. So Dukhi Krishna, now known as Syamananda, went about his usual activities, but you couldn't help but notice the difference, not only visually with the tilak, but emotionally and internally with his mood of devotion. Vrindavan at the time is a small village. I know, for instance, here in Alachua, not much happens that everybody doesn't know about pretty quickly, especially something very, very significant, very powerful, and very spiritually beneficial. Everybody gets to talking about it and wants to know how it happened and everything like that. This is the nature of the village life. So, this began to be the common topic of discussion because it was uncommon and highly irregular for a Vaishnava to change these things, change their tilak, change their name, take a different approach to the mood of service that they were executing previously. So, how hard, I was thinking it must have been for him not to share these details with Narottam Das and with Srinivas, because Jiva Goswami had told him to keep it to himself. So it wasn't long before some traveling devotees that were coming out of Vrindavan reached Bengal. And in Bengal, they reached Ambika Kalna. And in Ambika Kalna, they reached the ashram of Hridoy Chaitanya. And the story of the transformation of Dukhi Krishna, now Syamananda, was relayed. And many people listened to it and heard it there. Hridoy Chaitanya actually was very angry. It mentions he was quite upset. He said that Jiva Goswami is accepted my disciple as his own. I have placed Dukhi Krishna in his care in good faith. And now, due to the association of this Jiva Goswami, my disciple Dukhi Krishna has abandoned me, his own guru. The subtleties here and the implications on a broader scale throughout history are very clear. It's a very instructive pastime that's going on in this aspect. So immediately, Sri Chaitanya got 5 of his most senior men. He said, you go to Vrindavan, you question Jiva Goswami, you question Sri Chaitanya, and then you report back to me what is the story. If these stories are true, then Dukhi Krishna should return and I will punish him as he deserves. However, if Jiva Goswami should interfere in any of your activities there, do not argue with him. Do not challenge him. He is an exalted Vaishnava. Just deliver my letter and wait for his response and then bring it back to me. Additionally, while you're there, ask Krishnadas why he has abandoned his guru. So this is all some very weighty stuff. Then he instructed the 5 of them, now go to Vrindavan. So their travel and all is not gone into. Just as they arrived in Vrindavan, they presented themselves at the ashram of Jiva Goswami. When they arrived there, they were received with great hospitality, treated very respectfully, given places to stay, fed prasadam, everything was very nice. Then once everything had settled, they presented their letter from Hriday Chaitanya to Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami read it, and the 5 senior disciples stood there very anxiously, waiting for his response. Jiva Goswami replied as thus. He said, although this letter has been written in an accusing mood, I have not taken Dukhi Krishna as my disciple. I would never do such a thing. In fact, I am unworthy to be his disciple. So Jiva Goswami throws an entirely different twist on it than they expected. They expected to show up on a scene where Jiva had usurped this disciple and made it his own. And here Jiva is saying, no, I'm not even qualified to be his disciple. He said, I was asked to train Dukhi Krishna, and I have. And somehow or another, a rift has arisen between myself and Hriday Chaitanya. I am so sorry that he feels offended for me. I have great affection for my relationship with his guru, Gauridas Pandit. So I do not understand how this accusation has arisen. So now the senior disciples of Hriday Chaitanya, they felt very, very uncomfortable. They thought, we've accused Jiva Goswami on behalf of our spiritual master in this way, and he's clearly pointed out that he's done nothing of this. And well, it really wasn't, it was just a misunderstanding. These 2 sannyasis came from Vrindavan and they mentioned all these things and new name and a tilak, and so things got a little misunderstood. So Jiva Goswami says, please listen. One day I asked Dukhi Krishna, who is giving you this new name and who is giving you this tilak? And Dukhi Krishna replied, one day, while meditating on my guru, Hriday Chaitanya, he came to me, asked me to sit on a kusa grass mat beside him, and he awarded me the new name and the new tilak. After doing this, Hriday Chaitanya placed his head upon my feet. And knowing, Jiva Goswami saying this, knowing how pure-hearted Dukhi Krishna is, I accepted his explanation. Now, it mentions in Bhakti Ratnakar that Jiva Goswami didn't feel he was straying from the truth because Syamananda saw everything that happened in his life as the direct mercy of his guru, Hriday Chaitanya. He understood that whatever blessings he received was only because of the blessings, ultimately, of Hriday Chaitanya. So Hriday Chaitanya's disciples are very satisfied to hear this. And they asked Jiva Goswami to please enter all of this details in the form of a letter, and they would return it to Hriday Chaitanya in Ambika Kona. And Jiva Goswami also insisted that the disciples would go to Syamananda and hear the same story from him. So, being assured of the details, Syamananda repeated, as Jiva had said, and they took advantage of being in Braj. They thought, well, we've come all this way, we might as well do some peripherum while we're here. They went out to Govardhan and went around Govardhan Hill and went to Radhakund and Shamakund and went to Vamsi, about all the different places in Braj while they were there. They visited all the holy places and became very joyful. The burden of this responsibility Hrido Chaitanya had given them and the awkwardness of the confrontation had all been removed. And they were very, very blissful being in Vrindavan, very blissful going around to all the different holy places. And then in this way, they returned to Bengal. Upon returning to Ambika Kalna, the letter written by Jiva Goswami was presented to Hrido Chaitanya. He read the letter, and here again, Bhakti Ratnakar describes it. He considered it to be less than truthful. He said to the 5 senior men, he said, I can assure you, I have not appeared in any dream, and I have not awarded any name. I have not awarded any new tilak, and this letter is an attempt to deceive all of us. This is the end of it. I will now personally go to Vrindavan and get to the bottom of this entire issue. So Hrido Chaitanya began to put into effect a plan to go. And it wasn't just he was going to go by himself. He collected a large party for the purpose of this investigation. Included were 12 Gopals from the prominent area there, 64 Mahants, and an assortment of his own senior disciples. And he was leading all of them on the behalf of his guru, Gauridas Pandit. So, of course, a party like this, their travel time takes a bit. So some months later, they arrive in Vrindavan. And the group was shown elaborate hospitality. I mean, we've got 64, 76, close to 100 devotees have come from Bengal. So Jiva Goswami makes suitable arrangements, treated them very, very nicely. They all arrange for their quarters, and, prasadam for them to take and everything like this. So after all the formalities are done, Hrido Chaitanya let it be known that he desired to see his deviant disciple, as he said, Dukhi Krishnadas. So Syamananda Prabhu came and he offered his obeisances at the lotus feet of his spiritual master, completely full of Dandavats. When he got up, it mentions Hrido Chaitanya looked at him and saw his tilak and exclaimed, to whom is this Dukhi Krishna bowing down to? Syamananda said, why, my dear spiritual master, I'm bowing at your lotus feet. Hrido Chaitanya said, your relationship with me can be understood by the name I have given you and the tilak, not that which you artificially show with the display of humility. Your conduct towards me is actually most abominable. So Syamananda then, in front of Hrido Chaitanya, related the story of the dream and all of his blessings being the mercy of Hrido Chaitanya. Hrido Chaitanya then exclaimed very boldly, we cannot accept dreams as reality. You have acted without my approval, and in conjunction with Jiva Goswami, the two of you have sent me a misleading letter. So he's making very strong accusations. He feels very strong in his right to protect his disciple and to challenge who he sees as usurping his disciple, Jiva Goswami. Of course, from the broader picture, we can see this could be no more wrong, but that'll all come out in due course. So he continued to chastise Dukhi Krishna Syamananda very, very seriously, to the point where he started to beat him with a stick, harder and harder, beating him. Finally, some of the associates, the Mahants and his senior disciples, stopped him, pulled him away. The whole time this was going on, Syamananda was in great happiness. He accepted all of this unhappiness and this chastisement and this punishment coming from Hrido Chaitanya very faithfully as the blessings and mercy of his spiritual master. At this point, Syamananda falls into some internal meditation and takes up a spiritual body, which we know from Gorgonadesha Deepika that his spiritual form is Kanaka Manjari. And he takes up that form. And he relays the entire incident that's taking place in his body as Syamananda in Gaura Lila to Srimati Radharani. And he's confused as to what he should do. Radharani then calls for Subal. And Subal comes forward. Now remember, Subal, according to Gorgonadesha Deepika, is Gauridas Pandit. So Subal says, don't worry about everything. Hridoy Chaitanya is my disciple in my form as Gauridas Pandit. I will correct all this. So then he wrote the name Syamananda across the chest of Syamananda and the tilak there. So then Syamananda came out of his meditation, and Hridoy Chaitanya decided he would remove the name and the tilak. And he got some water, some dust, began rubbing very hard, trying, and he couldn't do. Then the Mahants came, they couldn't do. No one was able to do this. No one was able to get it off. So this is all going on, and everyone's watching this entire thing. Only Jiva Goswami mentions was able to understand the inner workings that were taking place in this entire Lila. As this was all taking place, Syamananda was calling out in great ecstasy, Hridoy Chaitanya, Hridoy Chaitanya, Hridoy Chaitanya. So in this way, their efforts to remove the tilak, to remove the name, to give some correction, this was confusing Hridoy Chaitanya, how all of this was not having a result. They were not achieving success. No one was admitting to him that, yes, this is what we've done. So in great confusion, they retired for the night. That night, Hridoy Chaitanya was sleeping. And in his dream appeared Srimati Radharani herself. She was not very happy. We all desire to have the blessings of Srimati Radharani, but none of us are anxious to have her anger. So in a very severe and angry mood, she rebuked and chastised Hridoy Chaitanya. She said, I am the one who, being very satisfied by Dupi Krishna Das's service, changed his name and his tilak. What do you or anyone else have to say about that? And then she disappeared from the dream. Imagine being such a sincere devotee that Srimati Radharani herself appears to correct any confusion going on in your life. This was the scenario with Syamananda. That's how sincere he was. So, awaking from this dream, Hridoy Chaitanya Prabhu realized immediately what he had done, and he prayed to the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani to please forgive him, taking into account what a great offender he had made of himself. So the next morning, he called for Syamananda, called for Jiva Goswami. In front of Jiva Goswami, he took Syamananda on his lap and embraced him. And with great affection, he said to him, you are the most fortunate. You are the most fortunate. You are the most fortunate. Then he told Jiva Goswami of the dream, and everything was cleared up. In this way, the chastity, the devotion, the sincerity of Syamananda were verified. He did understand that everything was the mercy of his spiritual master, but without setting that to the side, he did receive the mercy of Srimati Radharani. So here again, like his previous disciples had, since Hridoy Chaitanya was in Vrindavan, he continued to stay in Vrindavan for some time, visited the 12 forests of Vrindavan, went to all the different holy places, and then after some time, decided it was time for him to return. And he instructed Syamananda to stay some considerable time longer with Jiva Goswami, but when his training was finished, to please return to Gaudiya. So these three, Srinivasacharya, Narottam Das, Srinivas, Narottam, and Syamananda, they passed their days together in great bliss and ecstasy, studying the Goswami's literatures under the tutelage of Jiva Goswami. They spent much of their time engaged in different types of worship and services throughout Vrindavan. And one day, Jiva Goswami came to them and he said, Kartik season is approaching, and I want to organize a grand festival for all the Vaishnavas. I will need your help in making a big Mahotsava. And this will be a very, very wonderful festival. I would like you to deliver invitations to all the devotees. So they were, of course, immediately happy to obey the instructions of Jiva Goswami, who was their Shiksha Guru. And they prepared and they worked very hard to organize this festival. In due course of time, the festival took place. Narottam, Srinivas, and Syamananda assisted Jiva Goswami in hosting so many Vaishnavas. Now, at the conclusion of this festival, Jiva Goswami made a proclamation. He said, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed his devotees to write books explaining the science of Krishna consciousness. He also told us to distribute these books far and wide. Some of the Lord's most confidential servants, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Krishna Das Kaviraj, they have already handwritten many, many books. We have a stockpile of hundreds of manuscripts here in Vrindavan. But we want to send these books to Bengal. So the time has come to fulfill Mahaprabhu's mission. These books should be taken to Bengal, where they can also be read, copied, and distributed to all of the followers of Mahaprabhu there. And then he paused and he pointed to these three students of his. He said, these devotees, indicating Narottam, Srinivas, and Syamananda, he said, they have studied under my guidance for many years. They have studied the Bhakti Shastras, and I have trained them very carefully in philosophy. I feel they are the most qualified for this important mission. I humbly request their spiritual masters to give permission that they may go and deliver these books to Bengal. Gopal Bhatta Goswami stood up. He was the spiritual master of Srinivas. And he said, he has my blessings to go. Everyone cheered very loudly. Everyone was very ecstatic. Narottam, he began to, in his mind, reel a bit because he didn't really want to plan on leaving Vrindavan. How could he ever think of leaving? But, you know, it was requested of Lokanath Goswami, who also gave his permission. And of course, Sri Chaitanya had already given his permission for Syamananda to return. So in this way, each of the books was copied. They were put into the cart. This is a very long and wonderful story and pastime that's told in the life of Narottam Das Thakur. And then they will all assemble together and given the blessings, and all left Vrindavan to return to their respective preaching places. Srinivas would be in West Bengal. Narottam would be in East Bengal, which is now Bangladesh. And Syamananda would return to Orissa. And then in this way, they would carry the books of the Goswamis and distribute them in each of these places, copies of them, and preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, we know as they were traveling, the books were stolen. It's so interesting because this pastime of Syamananda, excuse me, because it intersects so intimately with the life of Srinivas and the life of Narottam. There are many, many, many intersecting stories that could take us down an entire road of hours upon hours of discussions of all the activities that they engaged in as a collective for the mission of Mahaprabhu. So eventually, the books were stolen, and Srinivas decided to stay in the area where they wanted to send Narottam and Syamananda to return and continue on with the preaching mission, because after all, they had been trained by Jiva Goswami, so they knew everything. So it was instructed that they should all go. And Shamananda eventually, he returned to Ambika. He went to Rito Chaitanya, offered his obeisances to him. It was a very, very happy reunion. There was no animosity or disagreement left from the previous incident in Vrindavan. It was all understood and forgotten and put behind them. Rito Chaitanya inquired from him how the different devotees in Vrindavan were doing. They had been sent with different presents to give to Rito Chaitanya from different devotees. Take him this, please bring him that, like that. And though the books, the theft of the books was explained to Rito Chaitanya, who was very, very concerned about this. So Shamananda was welcomed back in to Ambika Kona very, very happily. And for many, many days, he served there at the lotus feet of his spiritual master. During this time, it's worth noting that the majority of the personal associates, almost all of the personal associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had departed from the world at this time. There were only a handful of people remaining. And of course, the mood of separation that each of them had was the only thing holding whatever little bit of life force they had left. So as a result of this, the preaching of the teachings of Mahaprabhu would practically come to a halt. So one of the things that the three young devotees were expected to do, and that Rito Chaitanya wanted to encourage, was that this preaching of Mahaprabhu's mission had to pick back up, had to be brought back out into the main front. And to this end, he encouraged that Shamananda should return to Orissa, which was his home country, his hometown, and began to spread the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu there. While Syamananda was despondent and a little unhappy to leave the association of Hriday Chaitanya, who he had been separated from for so long, he happily, within his heart, took the instruction of his spiritual master and he set out for Orissa. And after he arrived there, the first place he went was to the place of his birth there at Dhirendra Bahadurpur. And it was such an amazing, when he arrived there, it was like local boy makes good and returns home. You know, he had gone away, become a great sadhu and a respected Vaishnava, and the stories of his life and pastimes had been relayed back to people. And so everyone in the village was so eager to see him and so happy to have him back. And he was very well received and given very nice facility there. He then from there went to the town of his father, and the same thing there. He established a wonderful Harinam program and set up regular evening meetings for discussing the philosophy and the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu there. And in this way, his fame and his respect and appreciation began to grow throughout Orissa, and he began to acquire many, many disciples. And through his efforts, through his preaching, the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were revived and began to spread all through Orissa again in a very big way. Now, there was one place, a town on the banks of the river Suvarna, and there was a very devoted man that lived there, a gentleman named Achyutadev. And Achyutadev had a son. It was his only son. And that son's name was Rasik. And Rasik was a very, very serious devotee of the Lord. And even in his childhood, he would only play the pastimes of the Lord and engage with his friends like this. He was very eager like that. And when he was the proper age, his father had him educated by all the different pandas. And he didn't have very much regard for material knowledge. He was already serious in the path of devotion. Now, Rasik himself became motivated that he seriously wanted to acquire the shelter of a spiritual master. And as he was in anxiety like this, he heard a divine voice from the heavens say, Rasik, do not be in any anxiety. Very soon, a great personality named Syamananda will come to your village, and then you will be able to take shelter of his lotus feet. So, hearing this, Rasik became very, very happy, very internally peaceful. And he began to daily go out to the road and stand most of the day just waiting. So looking for someone coming that he would come to know would be Syamananda. And on a very auspicious day, Syamananda made his entrance into the village. And the village of Rohini very happily received him. And Syamananda was welcomed and respected and given all facility. He began to speak and lecture, and regularly Rasik would come and listen to him. And Rasik led him to his home, where in his own home he was received very nicely. And he washed his feet, garlanded him, and in this way he surrendered his entire family to the lotus feet of Syamananda. And on the proper auspicious time, Rasik was initiated and was given the name Rasikananda. And in this way, Rasikananda became one of the most prominent disciples of Syamananda, engaging with him and traveling all throughout Orissa, preaching very widely, distributing Krishna consciousness and the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very, very broadly. There was one story of a great yogi. What was that yogi's name? Damodar. His name was Yogi Damodar. And he was very well known for his mystic abilities and powers. And one day he heard about the glories of Syamananda. So he came before Syamananda, and with great respect, Syamananda greeted him. And he asked, "What is your purpose?" He said, "I've come to understand what it is you're teaching." And Syamananda said, "If your holiness wishes to develop divine purity, please, please, I request you, just chant the holy names of Gora and Nityananda. The Lord is supremely merciful. If you do this, Krishna Prema will be bestowed upon you." Hearing what Syamananda said, it mentions that Yogi Damodar became very, very ecstatic in his heart, raised his hands into the air and shouted out, "Gornitai, Gornitai, Gomranga Nityananda!" And in this way, he became very, very happy in Krishna consciousness, surrendered himself unto Syamananda, became his disciple, and also became very enthusiastic in spreading the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Rasikananda and Syamananda. I'm very cautious, as I've been invited here for the first time, to keep an eye on the clock here. Although we have much left in the life of Syamananda, I do see that my allotted time has come to an end. So I'm going to properly, and with the permission of all the devotees and the blessings of the Vaishnavas, going to finish here. We can understand that Syamananda Pandit was a deeply serious devotee whose association with his god brothers Narottam and Srinivas, and his commitment to serving his spiritual master, and he's seeing everything in his life in connection to his spiritual master, is a wonderful example for us. This is the point of our studying the lives of the Vaishnavacharyas. This is the point in our diving into their life and their pastimes and their stories, because it gives us practical examples that we can apply to our own Krishna consciousness. We can look at their lives and see how what they did was instructive to us in our own devotional practices. And this is what we should take from these stories we hear. Yes, they may be interesting stories and fun to hear, but we have to understand the deeper spiritual context of the example that these acharyas, this is the meaning of acharya. And we have to understand the deep context of their lives as it instructs us in what we can do in our own Krishna consciousness. So I'll finish there. Madam Gopal, I'll let you take the lead from here.
Thank you very much, Azaratma Prabhu. It was a real nectarian talk. I'd like to pass it on to our president, Neelmani Prabhu, to give the final word of thanks, after which we'll open it up to all the devotees to say a quick Haribol. And then Chaturatma Prabhu, if you have a few minutes after, maybe I'll try to reconnect with you later to see if we can learn something about our technical issue that we had. We heard most of your word, but in the beginning and throughout, we had a little bit of choppiness. So maybe you could help us also. So anyway, I'll connect with you later.
Yes, I appreciate that, since I hope to use this as a regular format for other opportunities. I should learn how to do it
And
right.
we hope to hear the rest of it, because there's no end to this nectar, and we want to hear more and more from you. It was really very much appreciated. So we'll definitely schedule you in for the, the next slots when they come up. So I'll pass it on Neelmani Prabhu now.
Hare Krishna, Chaturatma Prabhu, Danvat Pranam, Mr. Srila
Hare Krishna,
Prabhupada.
Neelmani.
So Chaturatma Prabhu, I've never actually seen you just sit and give a wonderful class. My images of you are jumping off the Sadhu Sangha stage into the audience, head first. That's so just giving a beautiful class like this.
Thank goodness I have more than one way to express myself.
This was a wonderful class. It was so nice to hear the glories of Syamananda Pandit. Every time we go to Vrindavan, we always have the opportunity to visit Shri Radha Shamsundar, and the devotees there are so humble and so nice, and they always give us a little brochure about Syamananda Prabhu, and we visit his samadhi and things. So it's so nice, and we're just bringing back all those memories. So thank you so much, Prabhu, for a wonderful class and wonderful katha.
Thank you.
And we will definitely look forward to hearing from you again. So Hare Krishna.
And so we would like to request all the other devotees to, you can unmute yourself and say a quick Haribol.
Haribol,
Haribol, Chaturatma.
Hare Krishna. I see so many faces I know here.
It was so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chaturatma.
Prabhu.
All glories to Syamananda.
Jai, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate you all inviting me, and I hope I didn't disappoint, and that we all have an opportunity to share together again. Jai Yadu.
Choppy or not choppy, you're a joy, always.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Jai
Krishna.
Shri.
Hare Krishna, bro.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Jai, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for a wonderful storytelling. It was so engaging despite the audio. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chaturatma Prabhu, thank you very much for your association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
I
So,
can see this here.
so thank you again, Chaturatma Prabhu. And Jayadvaita Maharaj is also here. Jai Maharaj.
Well, that was the most embarrassing part, having to speak in front of Jayadvaita Swami.
Thank you, Chaturatma Prabhu. So nice.
All right, well, Swami, good to see you. Good to see you.
Very clever.
Yeah, we have Apurva Prabhu and Mother Kamalini also online. We have Jai Shri Mataji from near Vrindavan online. We have quite a few senior devotees online with us to enjoy this wonderful nectar. So
Hi, Hare Krishna.
thank you, Mother Kamalini.
I don't have my camera. All right.
So thank you all once again. I'm going to make just a couple of quick announcements of upcoming speakers. So today we had at the center of our weekend, His Grace Chaturatma Prabhu. And then tomorrow evening, we have Adi Gadadhar Prabhu talking on Jagadananda Pandit. So the nectar flows will not stop. And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj, as always, anchor, the rock of our channel. Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 p.m. We are doing the second canto. It's really incredible material. So please do join for that. And then on Tuesday, we have Govinda Prabhu from Chowpatty on Tuesday evening. And on Thursday evening, His Holiness Badri Narayana Swami Maharaj on Pastime of Srila Prabhupada. So please keep joining us for more and more nectar. And we look forward to seeing you again. So Chaturatma Prabhu, maybe I'll touch base with you a little later in a couple of minutes and see if we can work on this, because this way it'll help you for all the other Zoom preaching that you'll do. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.